CTV News with Carlyle Fiset.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with a major investment in the local EV sector. A Norwegian company broke ground on a $3.2 billion facility in St. Thomas today to produce sustainable battery materials. With more on the announcement and the expected economic impact, here's Brian Bicknell.
3, 2, 1, go! All right.
Shovels hit the ground in St. Thomas once again as dignitaries broke ground for the latest project to charge up the Ontario and regional economies.
I truly believe in the EV sector. That's the way we're going to be going. That's the way the world's going. And we're going to make sure that we're leaders around the world when it comes to battery manufacturing, electric vehicles.
Premier Ford on hand as Norwegian manufacturer Vianode announced a $3.2 billion investment into its synthetic graphite plant at Yarmouth Yards. Synthetic graphite is the biggest component by weight in electric vehicle batteries. And the announcement coming on the heels of Volkswagen's groundbreaking of its $7 billion PowerCo gigafactory producing batteries for EVs. Vianode's CEO Burkhard Strobe would not comment on potential deals between the two companies.
I would assume that PowerCo and Vianode have the same reasons to come, and that's a very supportive environment as we discussed today. Canada itself has a stable, predictable political system and situation, so that's very important for companies investing a lot of money.
The investment will create 300 jobs in its initial phase, with 1,000 jobs at full capacity.
So many grandparents have come up to me and said, Mayor, you know what's happened? You've made it where our kids can stay home, where our kids can work in a community where they grew up.
The new Vianode plant not going up without some public money. The province has pledged a loan of $670 million subject to conditions. The facility is being built in phases and will ultimately reach 150,000 tons of annual capacity. That's enough synthetic graphite to supply roughly 2 million EVs each year. Brian Bicknell, CTV News.
A long day of budget deliberations at City Hall, with councillors recommending changes to Mayor Josh Morgan's draft budget. With more on what's in, what's out, and where the tax rate stands, here's Daryl Newcomb.
I'm not going to rob from Peter to pay Paul.
I think this is a false savings.
For more than 5 hours, city councillors wrestled with making changes to the mayor's draft 2026 budget. The longest debate, whether to pay off the health unit's $2.4 million loan now or let it be paid out over 10 years with operating dollars that are cost shared with the province.
Nobody likes backfilling somebody else's bill. The province has been a very bad partner.
There's cheaper ways to do that than paying $2.4 million on a loan that the province is responsible for 75% of.
Begrudgingly, they decided to pay off the loan now to free up operating dollars for public health initiatives.
Paying the provincial bill sucks. They should be paying it themselves. Plain and simple. But they haven't.
Meanwhile, a pitch to permanently extend 2 hours of free core area parking sparked another debate.
If someone's coming for an appointment, 1 hour is not enough. If someone's coming for a lunch, 1 hour is too tight.
The committee supported the free parking extension, which will cost taxpayers $784,000 a year. They also backed a further tax reduction, recommending $4.8 million previously collected from taxpayers to cover development charge exemptions, but wasn't ultimately needed, will now offset 0.3% of the tax rate increase over the next 2 years. But it will also leave a financial hole to fill in 2028.
We don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. But here we're robbing Peter 2 years from now to pay Peter today.
I'm comfortable with returning some of this money, if not all, to the taxpayer as it was incorrectly collected. For me, development charges are supposed to be paid by developers.
In total, the proposed tax rate increase was reduced from 3.6% to 3.4%, equal to about $130 more next year on the average property tax bill. The recommendation supported by the Budget Committee will go to Council next week for final approval. Then it will be up to the Mayor to decide if any of them will be vetoed.
I supported most of the decisions today, and I've not vetoed in the past, so I think people can anticipate that's where I'm headed.
It would require a 2/3 majority of Council to overrule any veto. Daryl Newcomb, CTV News.
London police say they're looking for suspects who smashed up a Masonville Mall jewelry store. According to police, 3 men wearing ski masks went into Carrot Jewelry around 8:30 Wednesday night, destroying display cases with hammers, stealing jewelry, and then getting away on foot. Police say they have recovered 2 duffel bags filled with jewelry, but they have not said if that's all that was taken. No injuries were reported, and the suspects remain at large. After months of review, a London man has been deemed a dangerous offender. He had previously pleaded guilty to manslaughter, and as Lauren Stallone reports, he now faces an open-ended sentence.
26-year-old Preston Hill pleaded guilty to manslaughter last year before Ontario Court Justice George Orsini. The guilty plea was in addition to 2 others for assault causing bodily harm and attempted robbery. Court previously heard the charges were in relation to a random fatal stabbing in May of 2021 on Richmond Street that claimed the life of Samuel Bakare. The Crown brought forward a dangerous offender application in February based on his criminal past. Now, after months of review, Justice Orsini has deemed Hill a dangerous offender, saying, quote, "He has shown little in the way of motivation to change. He acknowledges his addiction to substances, and there are indications that he is willing to accept whatever treatment is recommended. Unfortunately, this has been the case for the better part of his criminal history." Court previously heard Hill was an accomplished athlete. However, there was also evidence that he had a difficult upbringing and was subjected to sexual abuse as a child. Justice Orsini's decision was lengthy. The 57-page document took more than 2 hours to read into the court records. He concluded his decision by saying, quote, "Having considered the evidence in its totality, I find that it does not support a reasonable expectation or likelihood or sufficient reason for believing that anything less than an indeterminate sentence will protect the public against Mr. Hill's violent recidivism." This means there is no end date for Hill's jail time and will solely depend on his behavior. As the hearing ended, Hill was seen waving goodbye to family in the courtroom. Lauren Stallone, CTV News.
A London man charged with causing a crash that killed a senior 5 years ago has maintained he was not the one behind the wheel. Nick Paparella has more on his lawyer's story, trying to convince the court police charged the wrong man.
When he testified during the trial, 31-year-old Baha Ali told the court that he wasn't the man behind the wheel when his speeding Mercedes-Benz crashed into a beige Hyundai at the intersection of Southdale and White Oak Roads 5 years ago. 67-year-old Joan Clubb of London would eventually die from the injuries she sustained that November day. Ali told the court he lied to police to protect his younger brother Muhannad, who was the driver. In her closing arguments, Crown Attorney Kara Douglas said, "Your Honor should reject the testimony. The evidence of Baha Ali and Muhannad Ali is not credible because they lied." The Crown said the brothers lied to police and the court, saying, "This is not an identity case. It's not a whodunit. Mr. Baha Ali was the driver." The court heard testimony and saw video that the Benz was speeding along Southdale, which is zoned for 60 kilometers an hour. The Crown said as the Mercedes approached the intersection, it was going at least 129 kilometers an hour. She added, a reasonable person would not be going over double the speed limit. The Crown told the judge to convict Baha Ali of dangerous driving causing death. The accused has pled not guilty. When defense lawyer Melina Macchia made her closing submission, she told the court that the accused is telling the truth, that he wasn't the driver on the day in question. Macchia said there's no compelling identification evidence that the court can rely on to prove Baha Ali as the driver. She told the court that the witnesses at the scene can't be relied on because the brothers look the same, saying, "We have 2 sets of people describing 2 different sets of clothing. Their description of the driver is incorrect." Before wrapping up, she told the court, Baha Ali is telling the truth. Justice Barbara McFarlane is expected to hand down her verdict in the case on February 3rd. Nick Paparella, CTV News.
London police say they've laid charges against a driver they say caused a fatal crash this summer. It happened on Bridges Street near Egerton. A 49-year-old motorcycle rider was rushed to hospital but did not survive. Police say they've now charged a 58-year-old man with careless driving causing death. They say he's being released on bail, scheduled for another court appearance in January. Police across the province launched their annual ride campaigns today. Provincial police say the annual program is meant to prevent impaired driving, and it runs until January 1st. They say drivers can expect an increased police presence throughout the holiday season. An emotional tribute at Queen's Park this morning for the teenagers killed in last week's crash near Hanover.
I rise today to pay tribute to the victims of a tragedy in Bruce Grey-Owen Sound.
The local representative for Hanover, Paul Vickers, delivered the tribute. 2 16-year-olds and a 17-year-old were killed in the rollover crash last week. He offered support for a 4th teenager who survived the crash and just returned home after a week in hospital. All 4 were students at John Diefenbaker Senior School in Hanover.
I want to rise today to recognize Damian Davis, an aspiring auto mechanic and volunteer for the St. Matthew's Lutheran Church. To recognize Haley Kiefer, the spunky 16-year-old daughter of Stacy and Sarah. To recognize Tyson Barley, a big brother who loved anything with an engine. And I wish Layden Price Hilliard best in his road to recovery. These teens were beloved community members and cherished by their families. Their stories captivated the hearts of Grey and Bruce counties. Madam Speaker, my heart goes out to the Hanover community as they mourn Damien, Haley, Tyson. May their memory be a blessing, and may they rest in peace.
A prominent leader in the local Pride community has died. As Sean Irvin reports, Martin Withenshaw was a champion for rights at a time when support wasn't always a given.
Over 4 decades, Martin Withenshaw helped to boost the profile of the LGBTQ+ community in London. In the early 1980s, there were few public supporters.
I grew up here, and it was very different when I was growing up here 40 years ago. I find it a lot more welcoming now, but there's always these things that need to be done.
And getting things done was Martin, or as his friends knew him as, Marty's mantra in life. Some friends share he could be bossy, but more often, Marty was just full of love. In his lifetime, he was known as a business owner, an advocate for those seeking employment. But it was Martin's work in the LGBTQ community that stood out.
If it wasn't for this generation that Martin grew up in, maybe our children wouldn't have the chances they do now. That's how loudly he advocated. He knew the future could be better for anyone identifying under the rainbow.
Withenshaw's legacy includes taking the London Pride Festival to the next level, according to longtime President Andrew Rosser, who shared his thoughts via telephone.
He was able to lead Pride London Festival into Victoria Park, which had never been done, and it's been there now for, almost 15 years.
Withenshaw was the recipient of multiple awards during his lifetime, but none greater than when he was selected as the Grand Marshal of the Pride Parade in 2019. It was there he told us he welcomed his role as an advocate, but also pushed others to speak up.
The Two-Spirit community, they have to come out and they have to speak. I can't speak for them because I'm not Two-Spirit. Same as I can't speak for the lesbian community. I can't speak for them. They got to come out and speak for themselves. So that's the one thing that I think that people have to realize is that each group have their own message.
It is a call to action that escalates with Withenshaw's passing. And while his voice is now silent, friends say his legacy will be remembered by Londoners for decades to come.
He was a hero in London, and he did it without any selfishness or any looking for any accolades.
In London, Sean Irvin, CTV News.
The London Knights kicked off a 3-game road trip through Northern Ontario tonight.
2-on-1. Iggy Potsy has Carey and Brad. Team scores!
It's the first of 3 games in 3 nights for London, and it started on the wrong foot in North Bay. The battalion got out in front early, never giving the lead back. Brady Waslin did score for the Knights, his 9th of the season. And that ties him with Sam O'Reilly for the team lead, but it was all North Bay in this one. It finished Battalion 5, Knights 2. London's road trip continues tomorrow night in Sudbury. Later on CTV News, the tariff impact on Christmas trees, why demand for the real thing is dropping ahead of this holiday season. Checking today's market numbers, in Toronto, the TSX fell more than 370 points thanks to losses in the basic materials sector. In New York, the Dow shed about 400 and the Nasdaq plunged close to 500. The Canadian dollar was off about 1/5 of a cent. On commodities, gold lost about $23 an ounce and oil was down 1/4 a barrel. A new report out today says food insecurity in Canada has reached a record high. As grocery prices rise, more and more people are forced into difficult choices, figuring out how to feed themselves and their families. John Venevalley-Rao reports.
When it comes to attitudes towards food prices, the survey found they remain a top expense pressure for households.
My experience is they've been going up, 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 up.
The report finding many Canadians are increasingly challenged by persistent food inflation, and it's been changing how they shop, cook, and eat in order to cope.
Canadians are adopting frugal habits, like switching brands, looking for coupons, discounts when they're buying products.
The survey, in fact, finding almost half of the 3,000 respondents are seeking out more sales and discounts. Nearly a quarter are using more coupons and shopping at cheaper stores as they try to make ends meet.
But yeah, you can find deals and sales all the time.
With more than a quarter reporting they struggle to afford food, up from nearly 23% a year ago. Food banks have reported a huge surge in the number of families seeking help.
Nice to get it out there. Like, this is so good that people are talking about it.
Karina Roberts is a single mom with 3 boys who says she may need to start going to a food bank every 2 weeks.
They are helpful, but I mean, then again, sometimes they don't have everything either. And it's a lot of canned stuff. And that's great. It's awesome that there's that help, but there's not a lot of fresh. There's not a lot of meat. There's not a lot of fruit.
The survey found many Canadians are prioritizing eating at home to manage costs. And on average, respondents say they now pay $515 a month for household food, compared to under $500 in the spring, which is a modest increase. On that front, many do overestimate the rate of food inflation this year. Almost 1 in 3 believe prices have gone up more than 10% over the last year, nearly triple the actual amount. And while affordability is still a major issue, the survey also finding that Canadians are cautiously optimistic that food costs may somewhat stabilize in 2026. John Venevalley-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
Good evening, I'm Rita Ismail. We're remaining on the mild side as we head into the night with lots of cloud cover ahead of a weather maker that will approach southwestern Ontario overnight tonight. And with that, we're going to be seeing some spotty rainfall, light drizzle, especially throughout Midwestern Ontario. It's really not packing a lot in the way of moisture. It will push through by tomorrow morning, making way for sunshine, but it will be breezy for your Friday and heading into the weekend. Very bright and beautiful with comfortable temperatures. I'll break down the full forecast coming up after the break.
'Tis the season for helping others, and the Business Cares Food Drive is how we can all help Londoners in need. On November 29th and 30th, over 40 participating grocery stores and hundreds of volunteers will be collecting food and donations. Over 40% of people who use the London Food Bank are children, so your support is needed now more than ever. Let's ensure everyone has a happy holiday.
Welcome back with Rita Ismail on the desk now, handling the forecast for us tonight. We've had some decent amount of sunshine over the last couple days, a nice break after what was beforehand. Is that going to continue into the weekend?
It sure will. Right. We got good news in this forecast, Carlyle. Although overnight we are going to see a little bit of rainfall, but that's when we want it. Light drizzle possible overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. Today, though, right on the mark, 6 degrees, our daytime high. That's where we're supposed to be. It's nice and bright early in the morning. Clouds increased later in the afternoon, again, ahead of this system that's going to push through tonight. The record on this day, 1953, we actually hit 19 degrees. Record low minus 13 in 1951. Heading into the night, clouds again will start to filter through, and that will be the story with this weak low pressure system that's going to cross through over the Great Lakes tonight and bring with it some light spotty rainfall throughout the region. The most, Gray and Bruce, looks like you pick up a couple millimeters of rainfall, and then the rest of us just spotty rain tomorrow morning between 6 and 9 a.m. and then clearing by the afternoon, breaking into a nice mix of sun and cloud. There is another system that will sit to the south, as you can see here, Saturday morning, but at this time, it doesn't appear to be impacting our forecast for the weekend, which is great news. More sunshine for your Saturday and your Sunday before another weather maker slowly approaches for next week. But overall, this weekend forecast looks pleasant. Thank you to our viewer, Rosemary, for sharing this beautiful backdrop. Let's plan out your Friday. So you'll wake up, it will be breezy. The winds will kick up out of the west, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour in behind that low pressure system. But our temperature will also kick up to 9 degrees. That's above seasonal. We'll experience that clearing tomorrow afternoon and make way for some sunshine for your Friday. Heading into Saturday, like we mentioned, a nice mix of sun and cloud. A cold start to the morning at -2 on Saturday and -3 on Sunday, but plenty of daytime heating for this time of year with wall-to-wall sunshine on Sunday and 10 degrees, believe it or not. 8 degrees on Monday and Tuesday, and that's the next chance for some moisture to move back in. Tuesday looks like light rain throughout the day into the night, and then Wednesday morning, mostly cloudy, both Wednesday and Thursday. Midwestern Ontario, you will pick up the rainfall overnight tonight. Again, it's not a lot. You probably won't even notice it. It's very weak system pushing through. The story is the gusty winds in behind it. So there is a slight chance for some lake effect flurries for parts of Midwestern Ontario, but at this time sitting quite low. The temperature, though, 4 degrees on Saturday and 7 on Sunday. A pleasant weekend indeed. Monday, lots of sunshine, and then things take a bit of a turn. Tuesday, 8 degrees. The rainfall moves in, and then by the end of next week, we're actually going to drop down to a daytime high of only 1, and that will be the new pattern that will sort of set up for the following week. Carlyle?
Rita, thanks very much. Trade uncertainty appears to be driving down Christmas tree sales. As Paul Hollingsworth reports, for tree farmers, the holiday season is make or break.
For Christmas tree growers, this is always the busiest time of the year. Freshly cut trees are sold and shipped in time for December 25th. However, there are warning signs the industry could have a tough December.
The business is going to take a huge hit.
Colin Hughes ships more than 150,000 trees across Canada and around the world. His usual exports to the U.S. are down roughly 50% this year.
Down the eastern seaboard especially, there's I would say a nervousness.
According to Hughes, the trade war between Canada and the U.S. has pushed customers away from purchasing his trees.
General census that I was getting, in fact, some of them said, like, we can buy $300,000 worth of trees from you, which is great, but if a tariff comes on to them the last minute, it costs us an extra $50,000 in tariff, that's our profit.
The Christmas tree industry represents big business in Nova Scotia, generating more than $50 million in revenue while supporting thousands of jobs. University professor Dan Shaw says American customers are likely managing risk during a time of economic uncertainty.
People act not necessarily always on data, but on perception, and having instability of those relationships impacts people's purchasing decisions.
Colin Hughes says a drop in Christmas tree sales to the U.S. will impact his bottom line, but there is possibly some good news. If fewer trees are sold in the U.S., more trees could be available for sale here in Canada.
Orders are down this year, so there should be a surplus of trees locally.
Hughes hopes tree prices in Canada will stay the same as last year, with a greater variety for shoppers to choose from, which could help boost his business. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, New Ross, Nova Scotia.
CTV News London has a newsletter helping you start your day with the latest local headlines. By signing up, you'll get local news content from CTV London direct to your inbox, including top stories, the forecast, and videos. You can sign up at ctvnewslondon.ca. Finally tonight, it's been a hectic week at the Bruce Power nuclear plant, but that's by design. Staff and officials have been taking part in emergency training, preparing for worst-case scenarios. With more, here's Scott Miller.
Bruce Power's Emergency Management Center has been buzzing this week as the world's largest nuclear plant defended itself against a possible large-scale cyber attack during an extensive province-wide emergency training exercise.
Coupled with that, there's also a fire at another building on site and protesters. So there's a lot happening, not all at once, but in pretty close succession. So it really is, challenging people on a number of fronts.
The 3-day-long emergency exercise involved hundreds of people from across the country, really, as Canada's largest nuclear facility works with officials from Emergency Management Ontario and the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, along with local municipalities, to train for worst-case scenarios.
We always learn things. That's why we do them, right? If we were perfect, then we wouldn't be learning. So there's always gaps that are addressed, and then we work to fill those gaps.
Previous disaster scenarios involved a tornado hitting the Bruce Power site and a plane hitting a reactor building.
Fukushima was an eye-opener for the whole industry that we need to be prepared for things that, we might not have anticipated, an ice storm, something like that. So we continue to come up with scenarios to make sure we're prepared for just about anything.
The disaster scenario dubbed Huron Unity started on Tuesday and wraps up today. These province-wide emergency exercises happen every 3 years, says Peevers, but Bruce Power has many more disasters to simulate to try and keep themselves emergency ready. Because if something goes wrong at the largest nuclear plant in Canada, the impacts could reach well beyond the Bruce Power site.
During the average year, we'll do, 50, 60 drills of various different scales involving different people on site and, make sure that we're practicing every year. And we have 5 different sort of crews that are on our emergency response organization. So each one of those will have at least, one sort of major drill each year to keep those skills sharp.
In Bruce County, Scott Miller, CTV News.
That's it for us. Thanks for watching. For all of us at CTV News London, I'm Carlyle Fiset. Have a good night.